Okairi, welcome back to my channel, Made Between the Pages. My name is Taylor, and today we're going to be doing a full, spoiler-free review for Legacy of the Brightwash by Krystle Matar. I read this book last month in May, and it has shot up to one of my favorite books of all time. This is an indie or self-published book, and it was a finalist in SPFBO 7, and it so deserves that title. I initially read this via ebook, and so I was very free with my highlighting. I wasn't really tracking where I was keeping my notes, but when I fell in love with this book as much as I did, I knew I needed a physical copy. So when I got my physical copy, I decided to transfer over my highlights from my ebook to here with my tabbing system. And guys, I used 2 full tab sheets transferring my highlights over. It's ridiculous. This is so tabbed up. This is probably my most tabbed book besides maybe Rhythm of War. And Rhythm of War has many more pages to be tabbed. So the volume of tabs per page is insane with this book. A lot of that has to do with how gorgeous the writing in this book is, but I'll get there in a minute. Let's first talk about what this book is about. This book takes place in a city called Yalesmer, I believe. Yalesmer, forgive me, Krystle, if I'm pronouncing that incorrectly, but it takes place in that city, in the world of the Dominion. And we follow our main character, Tashue Blackwood, who is a kind of low-level or normal-level cop in this world. His job as a cop is to monitor and control a portion of the population called the tainted, or the talented, depending on who you talk to in this world. But basically, the tainted or the talented are people with magic. Everyone in this world has the potential for magic, but some people quicken and some don't. Quickening can happen at any age, and that means that your powers are now manifest, and thus the government takes basically control over your entire life. The government has a forced labor system where those who have manifest their powers are forced into jobs to keep society running. So to keep the lights running in the city, or to run the trains, or basically anything that people take for granted as something that is a convenience in life, that one of the tainted or the talented are controlling that via their magic. Against their will, most likely. So basically, Tashue's job is to make sure this population of people is doing exactly what they're supposed to be doing. And if not, he is tasked with enforcing the consequences for those actions. Then one day, a dead little girl washes up on the shore of the Brightwash, which is the river running through this town, and her arms and her legs have been cut off, and she has a very stark tattoo on the back of her neck. And something about this little girl just touches Tashue, and he cannot get her out of his mind, and he becomes obsessed with finding out what happened to this girl. On top of finding this little girl, Tashue's son's magic also quickens, and he refuses to register with the authority, which is, the government in this world. And as such, he's thrown in the prison called the Rift. And Tashue was forced to let that happen because he's done this to others, so he has to be fair and let it be done to his son. And this is causing him extreme, internal conflict. And so that, plus the discovery of this little girl, really leads him down a rabbit hole to what really is the purpose of these laws that he's been upholding. Through trying to figure all this out, he gets caught up in a bunch of political machinations and in the web of lies and power balances and, corruption that is his society. The big tagline on the back of this book says, "Follow the law and you'll be safe, but what if the law is wrong?" And that really does summarize some of the core themes running through this book. This book also has a beautifully written romance that is a key part of this plot, and the balance between the little sprinkle of hope that romance gives us in such a bleak and horrendous world, honestly, that balance is so well done, and I could not put this book down. So let me go ahead and talk about the characters. So I've mentioned already Tashue Blackwood, but we also follow another main character, Stella Whiterock, and she is working in basically a hospice center where people go when there's no hope and they're expecting to die. And so she's surrounded by this very bleak circumstance, but she has a little girl named Saradwin, who is my favorite character in this whole book. I would die for her. I said this when I mentioned this book in my wrap-up, but I would die for Ceridwen. I love her so much. She embodies the innocence and the joy and the hope that children can bring. And she's, again, like the balance of any scene with her in it and the world that she's surrounded by is so well done. And I feel like it's never too heavy one way or the other. So I cannot praise that enough. Another favorite character of mine is Tashue's friend who was a soldier with him when they were younger, and his name is Ishmael, and I love him so much. He's definitely morally gray. All of these characters are morally gray, but he has this like mysterious aspect to him, but he's also kind of like the comic relief. He's very witty, he's very funny, and any scene that he was in had me cackling. So I really enjoy him as well. I'd say maybe him and Ceridwen are my favorites. All of the characters in this book are morally gray, nuanced, multifaceted, and they have a plethora of motivations for why they do what they do. And honestly, I've become obsessed with all of them. Like, I cannot stop thinking about them. This book does have a few fight scenes in it, but I would say it's a very character-based book with a high emphasis on political webs and schemes. The plot twists are wonderful in this book. I gasped out loud once the reveals start coming for why things are the way they are in this society. It's like, it hurts, but it's done so well. If you're a super like battle-based or plot-driven reader though, I would just be ready for a bit of a slower pace maybe than you're used to. Now the last thing I really want to touch on is the writing. The writing in this book is stunning. The prose just has this tangible feel to it. It like makes me nostalgic for a place I've never been. And I don't know, it's consistent throughout the whole book. The world building is also really well done, but the prose is what gives it this lived-in feel to it. There were also so many gems in this book, like little quotes that I was like, I need to keep this for like my future life. I need to keep this in mind. And I would actually like to read one of those for you right now. So this is when Tashue is talking to Ceridwen, and he just bought her some glass marbles, and they're talking about how they're made. And Ceridwen says, "Glass is made of sand?" "It is," Tashue said, nodding. "Such an ordinary thing, sand, but with fire, it turns into something beautiful." Ceridwen looked down at her bag of marbles, her eyes wide. "Grief and loss, they're like the fire that shapes us," Tashue continued, "turns us into something better." "How long before I get to be glass?" Ceridwen asked, looking up at Tashue again. "You already are glass," Tashue said. Excuse me while I try not to cry right now. Can we just take a moment to bask in the beauty that is that exchange? I'm obsessed. And finally, in the end here, I just want to add a little tidbit that might not be a draw for everyone, but if you're like me, it will be. And that is that Krystle clearly has a love for whiskey. Because there's so much lore and like whiskey, old-timey whiskey vibes in this book that she just nails. So if you're someone who is also a whiskey fan, you'll really enjoy the in-depth kind of dives into history and whiskey making that are gone into in this book. If you're not a whiskey fan, it'll just be part of the world building, and I don't think it'll stick out. But if it's something that you do enjoy, I think it'll definitely add to your experience. And it also adds to that nostalgic kind of vibe, like tangible vibe that I was talking about. If this book is not on your radar, I am begging you to put it on your radar. I think that it has something for everyone. It's going to make you question our current society. It's going to make you question your moral compass. And it's going to make you fall in love with the characters as they do the same thing on the pages. I am already dying for book 2. I'm going to be begging Krystle for access to an arc because I need more of this world. And honestly, I think this is a book that I'm going to be rereading over and over again because even though I tabbed the living crap out of this book, I think there's going to be more that I can get from it on every single reread. Let me know in the comments down below if I've convinced you to pick up this book. If you've already read it and you have similar thoughts to me, I would love to chat because I need people to gush with about this. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and click that bell. I'd love to have you as part of this community, and I appreciate it. But for now, I'm gonna head out. Jane!